It's my birthday tomorrow, you guys. So today's episode is a present of sorts. I'm really into this interview this week with my guest, Stefani Ruper, and I promise I'll keep this short so we can get right into it, but I just want to highlight a couple things from the episode. She's such a fascinating person, but not only that, I connect with her a ton, which you'll hear in the episode. But she's probably also one of the smartest women I know. She's very smart. She's the author of the book that's really popular, Sexy by Nature. And she's also a scholar. She studied at Dartmouth and now Oxford, and she's so knowledgeable in many different things, everything from science, including hormones, with her experience and the experience of lots of people she's worked with, as well as the philosophy side of things. She's a scholar of comparative religions and spirituality, and we talk about that as well. So in this conversation, we get really deep on these topics that, we don't really talk about in society, but ironically, they're my favorite things to discuss. Sex, religion, food and diet, the things you're not supposed to bring up with people you just meet, but I love to talk about them, so we're talking about them today, and it's a fascinating conversation, and I sprinkle in more things about my own story in this podcast that some of you might know, but a lot of you probably don't, and it's really cool. I learned a ton from Steph live on the air, and I'm sure you will listening as well. We recorded this podcast back in December, and I'm just airing it now, but we've kept in touch since then, and I've been excited for a while to have this podcast actually air so you guys can listen to it, but I re-listened to it just now, before I recorded this intro, and I forgot actually how great it was. So listen carefully, enjoy, open yourself up to learn something new. Might even be one you want to listen to twice, so just, enjoy. Before I hand over the show to myself, to the host, to the actual show, just a couple quick announcements. I promise I'll keep these short. I'll talk really fast or something. But number one, I launched something super special last week, and many of you already know about this because you're already on my email list. And I want to thank you because it's been fantastic getting your feedback for this. I launched my quick start guide to the Wellness Wonderland, also known as, and I say this in my Oprah voice, Katie's favorite things. And it's basically an exclusive list for my email list only, where I share everything that inspires me. And as you guys know, I really think of myself as a curator, bringing you the people that inspire me through this podcast, the things that inspire me, and I just share them. So you're going to get my favorite books, my favorite movies, my favorite podcasts, my favorite videos, my favorite lectures, my favorite places, just really deeply personal things from me that are inspiring, and hopefully they inspire you as well, because I think we can all use some inspiration, but also, this list as a whole can inspire you to make your own list and share that authentically with other people, because I created this because it feels so good to share things that genuinely inspire you. Like, you go to that restaurant that was so good. All you want to do is tell your friends about it. I think that's why social media exists, so we can post about it and share our excitement with people. So anyways, if you're not on my email list and you want that, the link will be in the show notes first thing. So just, if you click on the, there's going to be a live link if you're listening on your phone. If you click on the album art for the podcast, you'll get that live link to sign up for my email list, and it gets sent right to you. So thank you guys so much for your feedback on that. And the other thing I really want to thank you guys for is so many of you left amazing reviews for the podcast, and I am just so grateful for that I want to do something for you guys, because I really want to get more reviews, because the more reviews that we get, the more iTunes knows that we're doing good work here and brings more people to the show, which really helps me out. So for those of you who have left a review, thank you. And those of you who listen to the show and like it or have some feedback, I would love for you to leave a review as well. And I decided I'm going to choose a review and send them a book. So put your name in the hat, put your name in the ring, or whatever that expression is. Leave a review and you may get something special from me. So yeah, leaving reviews is so nice, so cool of you. And I have one more thing that I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to share it. I'm finishing up my book right now, you guys. And I know I've kind of teased to you guys that I have this book coming out with Hay House and it's exciting and yay. But I want you guys to be the first to know something about it. I have the publishing date for this book. And it's so far away that I was like, maybe I should wait a month to share this, or like 6. But I decided I'm excited and I want to share it with you today. So put this on your calendars. The book's publishing date is April 5th of 2016. That is less than a year away. How cool is that? I'm super psyched about it. It's going to be great. The book is called Let It Out, A Journey Through Journaling, and just send me some good vibes because I'm doing big developmental edits right now, and I'm really in the throes of that. So the podcast isn't every week anymore. It's more monthly-ish. Hopefully it'll start to be a little bit more, and I'll get back to weekly, I promise. I have so many good ones on my computer. Melissa Ramos, Elisa Vitti, so many, you guys, just so many good ones. A lot of friends of mine. You're going to I'm not even going to tell you anymore because I want you to be surprised, but they're awesome. Just trust me. So yeah, get on my email list so you know when the new podcast comes out. Subscribe on iTunes because then it'll download it, but you don't even need to do that. If you're on my email list, you'll get the new episodes emailed right directly to you. Leave a review. That'd be way cool. Yeah, mark your calendars. You'll be able to pre-order, I think, before April 5th. But I was just excited, and I wanted to share with my friends. So, yeah, you guys are my friends. Have an amazing week. It is my birthday. This episode is my present to myself and to you guys because I love it. So take it away and enjoy, and I will talk to you guys really soon. Broadcasting live from the Wellness Wonderland. You're listening to the Wellness Wonderland Radio. I'm Katie, and each week I chat with the most inspirational people on the planet on how to stay inspired in all areas of life. As you listen, feel free to tweet at me at Katie Dalebout or use the hashtag Wellness Wonderland. I'd love to hear your aha moments. So grab your headphones and listen on the go, or cuddle up with a notebook as we dive in deep with authentic conversations right here in Wonderland. I have been excited for this interview for months. Ever since I found Stefani Ruper on another podcast, I have been psyched to talk with her and introduce her to all of you guys. This woman is so authentic, smart, genuine, and I connect with her story in so many ways, and I know for a fact many of you do as well. Stefani is the author of the best-selling Paleo women's health book, Sexy by Nature, the whole food solution to radiant health, lifelong sex appeal, and soaring confidence. Amazing title. And she is the voice behind the Paleo for Women blog, the first ever body image self-love podcast, Live, Love, Eat. Gotta check that out. And she is also a scholar and holds degrees from Dartmouth, Boston University, and she's currently writing her next books, pursuing a PhD in philosophy, and dancing all over the place. I'm so excited that she stopped by Wonderland today to talk to us about everything from body image to hormones, spirituality, romance, dance. We're going to get into it all. So thank you so much for being here, Stefani.
Hi, Katie. Thank you. I have a bit of a cough, so please excuse me if I start hacking away. I've got a ton of water, and regardless, I'm super excited to be here with you, so thank you.
Yay, cool. Well, all right, let's start by zooming the lens back and give people who are new a bit about your story, how you kind of came to doing this for a living and living in what I call your own version of the wellness wonderland. And you've had quite a journey to get there, so could you kind of get us started on a little bit of that?
Wonderland, that's an interesting way to put it. Well, it's been a really long and winding path, and it is for everybody, right? And it's never perfect. I don't know where to start. I guess I started in a place that a lot of people do. I ate the standard American thing. I was a vegetarian, and I ate a very limited diet, but I ate such a restrictive diet that I often restricted, and then I obsessed about food because I wasn't letting myself eat it, and I had cravings all the time, and then I would way overeat, and then I would feel super guilty and way undereat, right? And so I was on that roller coaster for a long time.
Diet binge cycle, right?
Diet binge, yeah. Yeah, for like 10 years. And then I finally lost all the weight. A stomach flu actually gave me like the momentum I needed to like really go ahead and starve myself for a couple months. And so I did that, and I got super thin and I lost my period, I lost my fertility, I lost my sex drive, like completely lost my sex drive. Even the idea of being romantic or going on dates was just totally unappealing to me. And that was terrible. And then my mother recommended to me a paleo diet, and I went on paleo, and of course it fixed nothing because I was still super thin and still exercising more than all the athletes I knew were, I exercised a ton. So that lasted for a very long time. And I developed a really horrible case of acne, and I very much didn't like having acne. I really didn't like it. And I started doing a lot of research about how to overcome that and the fertility thing as well. And I began to suspect that the answer to my fertility and acne problem was to gain weight, but I didn't like that. That made me super anxious. So then I tried a bunch of drugs. They were like my last ditch resort for healing myself before I would gain weight. And those gave me some very severe health problems that are still negatively impacting me in a really profound way today. So I got off the drugs, but again, the side effects are still lasting. And then later, I finally, summoned the chutzpah to go ahead and gain weight and keep it on. And my period came back almost instantly, and my sex drive, and kind of all of it. And that was a while ago, and ever since then, my hormones have been like up and down and kind of taking their time to rebalance, but they're kind of getting there. So I am in a bit of a wellness wonderland, and I do eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm full. My whole life I never imagined I would get to this point. It means that I am no longer a size 00. It means that I'm actually more like a 7-ish. But when I'm hungry and I stop when I'm full, and I'm super healthy, and I feel great about myself, and the number of people who are interested in me romantically has not decreased. As a matter of fact, it's increased because I'm happy. So that's great. I have no complaints. It's not perfect, but it's pretty awesome.
You are such a positive example for positive body image and for eating enough and just blowing the whole diet myth out of the water. And I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing in the world. And the listeners know, but or maybe not all of this, but that mirrors my story almost to a T. I started with a vegan, very low-fat diet and eating very restrictive, high raw, and it made me lose a lot of weight and be a 00 and lose my mind and my period. And I think that orthorexic tendency can creep up when you're dogmatic about anything, vegan, paleo, just anything, diet culture. And I think so many of us, it's a slippery slope. And it's great that, we're having this conversation right now to open people up and know that they're not alone. But I guess I'm curious about something, which is that I know for me, the first time when I really heard that gaining weight would be the solution to healing these things I wanted to heal so badly without having to gain weight, have your cake and eat it too. There's so much resistance there. And, like I told you before the call, doing my research, preparing for this episode and familiarizing myself with your work was like such a joy. And I listened to so many different podcasts with you. And a little side note, I love how you never tell the story in the exact same way twice, and you're really great about everything you do. But anyways, one thing that did come up quite frequently was, and I'm not quoting you exactly, but basically you say, starving yourself to be thin is the easy way out. And the difficult thing is the right thing, which is standing up for your body and actually doing what it needs. And this brought up, it was brought up in many podcasts because it's so important and radical and groundbreaking. And a lot of people need to hear that. And so I'd love if you could discuss that and expand on that even further. And, I guess the question I have here is, how do you handle, or how do you suggest people hearing this for the first time handle the resistance that comes up to that, knowing that, okay, look, you've got to gain weight, it's going to be scary, you're going to have to figure out this self-love thing, it's going to be different, so how can you bust through that resistance and do what your body needs?
The resistance in your own brain? You mean your own resistance, not from the people around you, right?
Yeah. I mean, both, I guess, but hopefully you don't have resistance from people around you.
Well, it definitely happens from people around you. People don't like change. And I not all of the time, but friends will always encourage you, whatever. Or you're around certain gossipy influences, what have you. Okay, so the internal stuff, practice. I really do think a lot of it takes practice because we have... God, I have so many steps. There are so many steps I could give you. But I want to say practice first because it's almost like a habit that we have. We have conditioned ourselves to behave and to think in these certain ways that are incredibly negative. And I promise you that, it's not going to be super easy when you get started. But the longer you do it, the more you get a hang of it. And this is very much the case for me. And I know I'm biased because I'm in my own brain, but something that I really need in my life is data from my experiences to prove something is true. And so I kind of just had to say, I'm going to do it, right? This is an experiment. I'm going to do it and I'm going to see what happens. And you do it and you find out it's not that bad. And then maybe you get a little bit nervous and you retreat, but you know that you're practicing. And so you do it again.
Yeah.
And this is what weight gain was for me, was I put the weight on a little bit accidentally. I could have lost it all if I wanted to. I decided to keep it because I realized that the world didn't end. Like I had to do it and everything still kept going forward. And I know that we all need to believe in ourselves first and foremost, but we have to be real. We care about what people think of us. People still loved me. My friends still loved me. My family still loved me. And of course, again, because we're human beings and we can't avoid this fact, the people I was interested in romantically still liked me. So that came from leaping and then practicing, right? I learned that it wasn't so bad. And the longer and longer I do it, the more and more I get used to it. You're right. It's a radically different feeling. So that's one thing. Of course, another thing is patience for yourself and forgiveness for yourself. We talk about self-love all the time, but I hate so much that we're never really specific about what that means. You read all these articles that are like, love yourself. You got to love yourself. And I find that to be kind of an empty conversation, because what does that actually mean? What that means is that you have to accept that you are the way you are because of things in your genes and things that have happened to you, and then go forward from there. And you're not going to behave perfectly, and that's okay. It's so funny that we're having this conversation today, because I don't have a lot of negative days, but I'm on a kind of negative body image day today. I bought some new dance clothes in a bigger size than I ever have, right? And I'm glad that you're reminding me of this, because it's just, we live in a really terrible world. And so you need to be aware of the fact that that's going to always be there, and you learn how to avoid it again. And the resistance is, anyway, that's one other piece. I could literally, Katie, I could keep going for hours on things you can do to fight that resistance. Practical steps. For me, the most important thing is making that cognitive shift, taking those steps and realizing there's actually nothing to be afraid of. You have to dare. If you think about it as an experiment and you know that you can go back, it's so funny because I tell clients all the time, I'm like, well, you can always go back to starving yourself. And
Right.
like that's not something I'm supposed to say to people, but it helps remove that level of fear, and it helps you feel safe enough to go ahead and try.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. And having a sex drive is so nice. Just trust me on this one. Like, you're not, if you don't have a libido because you're thin and then you gain weight and you get it back, there's a pretty good chance you're not going to want to get like super thin again.
It's interesting. I think everything you shared there was really great. And I think that it's interesting. You've spoken about this before in other interviews, how it wasn't, you've been really thin and you've been bigger and you've been in between. And the way people treated you did change, but it was because of the level of confidence that you portrayed when you were super thin, and just bringing that in regardless of the size you are is really powerful. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, because this is the most important thing, right? Like, just, it's the most important. When I got really thin, I got really confident, is what it boils down to. But I realized, I began to suspect that the thinness wasn't the important thing. That's not why people were responding so positively to me, because I noticed that when I was feeling self-conscious, I lost the positive reactions that I had gotten so excited about getting. And I was like, okay. And so I began to sort of live into that more. And again, treating it not quite as an experiment, but treating it as something that I was like, okay, like I'm seeing some evidence that points towards this being the thing to do to get what I want and the thing to be. But it's also, I'm really fortunate because I grew up in not fortunate, but fortunate in this particular sense. I grew up in a highly individualistic home and stuff. And so people's opinions I always considered lesser than my own. I'm pretty good at not doing that these days, but it sort of helped to develop a bit of a thicker skin, so I wasn't so afraid. But anyway, yeah, I realized that confidence was the important thing, and I'm a dancer, and I spend time dancing in front of a lot of people most days of the week, and it's challenging for me because in the dance world, it's more important than almost any world to look a certain way. But I know without a shadow of a doubt that the way that you present yourself, people love, okay, this is something I don't think I've talked about on a podcast before. People love fearlessness. Mm-hmm. We love it so much. I kind of think that that's the reason we love celebrities so much, is because they give us this this world into which we can like not be, almost think of ourselves not being afraid, because they appear to be so unafraid of things and have this confident aura. And dancing is so like that. You can watch a dance performance and have the technique be awesome, but if the people look nervous, you're going to be looking away and down at the floor because you're terrified for them. Like, yeah. I just imagine it. I'm sure you've seen performances before where you were nervous for the people, right? Or like I've seen couples go up on stage and their technique was like pretty shitty, but they looked like they were having a blast and everybody loves them and they cheer and get standing ovations. Right. Because as human beings, we hate fear and we don't want to be afraid, and we want to be around people who make us feel like the world isn't scary and who make us feel like we can do things and they can do things and we don't have to be worried about them. And confident people do that for us. Yeah. We love the shit out of confidence. I can't express that enough. And I think that that's my biggest asset as a dancer, and I probably as a human being as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like that Maya Angelou quote of people don't remember what you said or how you danced. They remember how you made them feel. And yeah, if you feel anxious, people can feel that. And I always say, which is pretty much very similar, at least, to fearlessness, that, all people want from you is for you to be real, is for you to be authentic, and that's basically confidence. That's basically fearlessness, because when you're being real, that takes courage a lot of the time. So I think that and I think that's people's biggest fear with gaining weight, is losing their confidence, right? Is, you're asking them to give up something they've gotten used to and change. And like the fear is the change, maybe not the weight necessarily. Although, thin privilege exists, and, our society is, at this time favoring a certain body type, unfortunately. However, it's interesting. So I guess, since this is, we both are working in our lifetimes to shift this and to shift the body image or the revered body type from being the double zero to being, what is healthy for all women or most women. And speaking of that, I would love if you could talk a little bit about the metabolic effects of not eating enough, just so we kind of hit the practical there.
Sure. It's bad. It's complicated because different women's bodies can handle more stress than others. If you're under psychological stress, it's even harder. I talk about it like stress as a whole. Like you have an equation, A plus B equals C, total stress. And A is the psychological and B is the physical. And I'm sure we could add more different kinds of stress. But anyway, all stress adds up. And the female body does not like to be in a state of stress or perceived danger. And of course, psychological stress does this. And we see this all over the place with different primate studies. Like primates will eat the exact same diet, but the ones at the lower end of the social hierarchy will have impaired fertility, because they're simply less happy. And so their hormones work less well. So that's really important. And it happens for people too. And then the physical side of stress is like, well, the female body really doesn't like to starve. A male body, somebody just posted on the blog today reminding me about like hunter gatherers, and men were hunters and women were gatherers, and that's just physiologically what we're made for. And men can go out and hunt and run forever and not eat for a while, and they don't have to make babies, so it's fine for them to starve a little bit here and there, to fast or what have you. But for women, it's not. We make babies, and if we have a baby, if we get pregnant in unideal circumstances out in the wild, there's a pretty good chance you'll die because your baby draws a lot of resources from you and you're both in significant danger. So we have a mechanism built into our bodies that shuts down the reproductive system when our body perceives that it's in any sort of famine type situation. So this comes from over-exercising, it's a big stress and you burn a lot of calories. It comes from over-exercising. It comes from under-eating. It comes from being overly restrictive with fat or carbohydrates. Like your body wants calories in it. So when it doesn't get them, it shuts down the reproductive system. And you might think that like just affects your ovaries, but it doesn't. Estrogen and progesterone receptors are in all cells, right? And it has huge effects down the line. Like you talked about your mental health, right? That's huge. Estrogen and progesterone are huge for your mental health in the brain and for your sleep and your skin quality. Estrogen is necessary to have nice skin. And if you don't have any estrogen, you're going to have a lot of acne, period. So that's basically how it works. And you lose your fertility. Your thyroid function will slow down. You can make it much harder for you to stay a healthy weight throughout the rest of your life. You might be able to stay super restrictive right now, but if you have the longer you restrict, the harder it's going to be for the rest of your life to stay a healthy size. Your skin quality can deteriorate, mental health, libido. It's a pretty long list.
Yikes, not good.
No.
And not talked about enough. So I'm glad that we were able to address that. Could you speak about amenorrhea and people who have lost their period due to overexercising, undereating for a long period of time, and some of the negative consequences of that, and other than gaining weight, but how gaining weight is the the biggest thing that you saw in your experience to help heal that, and anything else around that particular hormonal issue?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so amenorrhea is basically the whole stress thing I was just talking about. Hypothalamic amenorrhea is when the hypothalamus, the like hormone command center of your brain, when it tells everything else to shut down. So you lose your period, which means you lose your fertility, which means your skin is subject, your mental health is subject, all these things are subject to risk, right? So there's that. And a lot of women experience it, a lot of thin women and a lot of athletic women. There's another piece to it, right? So your body needs to feel fed, and your hypothalamus hears those signals. And one way it does so is by gauging the level of leptin, a hormone in your blood. And leptin is produced by fat cells. If you don't have enough fat cells, you don't have enough leptin, and your body's like, oh shit, okay, we're shutting it down. And that's basically how it goes. And of course, the longer you do this, the more your body is kind of like, what's going on? Like, I'm really feeling a famine here. Like, you're getting really skinny. So the longer you do it, the harsher the symptoms you experience are. Your thyroid will keep slowing down and all that stuff. And of course, exercise is a big part of that, because exercise takes calories. And if you don't refuel enough, or if you don't de-stress and relax enough afterwards, and that can be a really big deal. So lots of women, from being too thin, they another word for this is female athletic triad syndrome, so another 4 words. But the triad is being super thin, exercising too much, and eating too little. And those are the 3 things that sort of cause this situation. So I, of course, was in this situation. I had polycystic ovaries at the same time, because contrary to what doctors talk about, it's possible to have both hypothalamic amenorrhea and cystic ovaries at the same time. A topic for another time, perhaps. But anyway, for me, weight gain was super important. It's funny because I experienced a lot of anxiety. I have a lot of sleeping issues, and I experienced a lot of anxiety, worrying that my state of poor health, and partially from my poor sleep, was what was causing me to be amenorrheic and to not menstruate and all of those things. And then in the most stressful 50 days of my life, like the most, I slept 3.5 hours every night for 57 days, which is no small feat. I had a lot of work to do. And
you were finishing your book, right?
I was writing a master's thesis from start to finish, and then finishing the book. And I was also taking a full load of classes.
Wow.
Yes. So
talk about a triad.
Yeah. So in this time period, I slept 3.5 hours a night, and I ate poorly. I mean, for me, eating poorly is like I had oats a couple times. Like, I didn't eat terribly, but I wasn't trying really hard to eat like the most super perfect paleo diet. And but I also, like, I needed food to keep me awake, because I can't do caffeine. It gives me migraines. So I needed food to keep me awake, and it dropped to very low on my list of priorities, staying thin. And I put on, I thought it was a ton of weight back then. When I look back now, I realize it still wasn't all that much. But I put on like 10 pounds, and my period started like the next week. And I was like, oh, it was actually just my body fat percentage, period. Because I was super stressed and unhappy and not eating very well. And I got my period back just from eating more.
It's kind of great that you went through that. Not that I'm sorry you had to have a stressful period of time, but it's great that that is the way that you figured it out, so you can teach this, and we have that lesson and from that experiment on yourself. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, you're absolutely no, you weren't interrupting. That's a perfect segue. I'm really glad too, because if I didn't have such concrete data about it, it would be tempting. It would be tempting. It would be tempting to try and play with that.
Blame it on stress, yeah.
Or something. And I really like clean data. It's very satisfying to me.
Yeah. I think that's interesting. So the next thing I want to kind of ask you about is intuitive eating and why that's important for women and how that can be a big challenge. And I've heard you say before that it was a big challenge for you when you got started. But my big question on this, which I hope I can articulate this with what I mean. But so, for instance, when you were in that period of time that you were just talking about, where you were using food to stay up and stuff like that. So that's not necessarily intuitive eating. Like maybe you weren't following your hunger signals to a T, which I think is great. And I think that, something that my mentor, Isabel Foxen Duke, calls the hunger and fullness diet, which, is following intuitive eating so much that you're making it another diet, which, even normal eaters don't follow their hunger and fullness signals all of the time, right? They eat birthday cake and they enjoy life and things like that. So my question is, especially in the space of undereating and amenorrheic people and people who may be underweight or may be on the orthorexic end, we'll call it, or things like that. Do you think that sometimes intuitive eating is something that you can't follow all the time? Or as women, when we need to keep more body fat on our bodies, do you think it's important to sometimes not listen to those hunger signals and fill yourself more than what you're used to? And I think you've talked about that before too.
Yeah, not a whole lot. I think this is really smart. People don't talk about this often.
Yeah.
We're almost like, eat intuitively. And I think it's kind of assumed that, well, if you mean okay, so you could actually mean intuitively two different ways, right? You could mean like doing exactly what my body says it wants all of the time, which I guess kind of makes sense. But also you could include in that doing what my body wants and sort of what I feel like, which I think is sort of what your mentor means. What she's going for is like, my body, I like to listen to my body, but also like stuff comes up sometimes and that's fine.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of make this clear, for people listening, is she thinks of this, and I do as well. It's kind of like a board of directors. Like you've got your body to listen to sometimes, and you've got your mind to listen to sometimes, and they're both right, and they're both great. And sometimes you'll listen to your body, and your body wins, and sometimes your mind wins, and sometimes they both want the salad, or they both want the same thing, which is great. It's just like the whole family choosing the same movie. It's great when that happens, but it doesn't happen all the time, and like that's okay. I think is kind of the issue there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. Definitely a board of directors, and it's totally true. You're right. Some women, well, God, like the whole eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full thing. It's terrible advice to give to people because
normal eaters, like, they get it. When I say to my little brother, like, if I ask him about his appetite, he's like, I don't know, like, I can't eat anymore. I don't know a like disordered eater or whatever who would be able to say like, I can't eat anymore after like eating some food. If you haven't always been in that cycle of whatever normal eating is, and I know I personally haven't, and I am definitely still not.
Right.
Like, if you don't have that, then the advice to eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full is completely meaningless, because you're like, what is hungry and what is full?
Yeah. It's like a breaker switch has been turned off, and we might have had that at some point, but we don't anymore after all the dieting and ignoring the signals.
Exactly. And I'm not really certain how to get those back. I got to be honest with you. That one, personally, in my life, I haven't figured out yet. I know a lot of advice that people give online, but that means that for me, the journey to like figure out like as best for me what means hungry and as best for me means full took a really long time. And the signals are very subtle. I think other people's are a lot stronger. And the detection of fullness is hungry. I get now. I'm like, all right, I get to eat.
Right.
I'll take that. Fullness is harder. And so, yeah, so it's complicated. And I don't remember why we're telling people about eating intuitively. I don't remember how far back the question went, but the point is that like for disordered eaters, like hungry and full, the brain needs to be involved in the decision making a little bit, and that's
That's an important
tricky.
point. Yeah.
But you can't do it without the brain. And so these women who are coming from a place of, like I'm going to eat 6 pieces of broccoli and then ta-da, I'm done. Like it's you're going to have to use your brain to tell yourself to eat more.
Right. I think
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No.
I don't even know what I was going to say. I think just, I think hunger directed eating is great in a lot of ways, but I'm really at the point where I feel that in a lot of ways I'm not eating enough if I'm truly following eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, and I'm not listening to my mind of, I kind of just want that. Like I'm full, I ate dinner, but I kind of just want to eat a little something else. Like I think that is important to be the proper weight that you want to be, or that you're not that you want to be at all, actually, that your body wants to be, and yeah, that's something that I've toyed with in my life, and because feeling over full or feeling full just in general, like a normal amount, isn't a great feeling for people who have been restricting themselves from that for a really long time. And
it's scary.
Yeah, it's scary, and you don't want to feel it because there's so much judgment around that. Like when a normal eater is full, they're just full and they just, I just ate a lot of food. But when a chronic dieter or a chronic person who's been dogmatic or disordered eating at all is full or over full, God forbid, right? Like if that's the case, there's so much self-judgment and self-criticism for that choice because you can physically feel it. And, that it's the beating yourself up that's the problem, not the feeling of being full. And, I think for you've spoken about this before, which was a huge shift for me. A lot of people say, like, eat until you're about 90% full, or I don't know, like less than that even.
Whatever. Like 60.
Yeah.
They say 60.
Yeah. And you really blew the top off of that for me. Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because I was going to talk about this whether you asked me to or not anyway.
Yeah,
so
perfect. Reading your mind.
I remember so clearly, I will never forget a moment I had in college when I was talking to my friend Sophie.
You mention her a lot in podcasts.
Do I? That's funny.
Yeah.
She was, I don't have a lot of friends, so anyway. I have some new ones though, so maybe I'll talk about them someday.
Okay.
God, I'm hopeless. Okay, so I expressed to her that she was expressing concern over my size, because I had lost a lot of weight, and it bothered me that she was expressing concern, but whatever. People kept saying, eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. And because I hadn't known what that meant, I thought I needed to feel like this physical gnawing hunger in my stomach every time before I ate. And she just was like, no, I just sometimes I kind of feel like it, so I eat.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, one of us has got to be wrong. But nowadays I understand that a little bit better. And so it's kind of related to this whole eat until you're X% full thing. Like, our baseline for existing should be always kind of hungry. Like, what is that? Mm-hmm. What is that I need to feel this gnawing hunger before I eat, and then when I eat, I can only eat 60% of what my pituitary and gland and thyroid gland and hypothalamus are asking me to eat? What is that? Yeah. I don't get it. And whatever, that's supposed to be like the Okinawan secret to them living forever. I would really love to, like, what did somebody say to me once? eat like a pine cone a day and then live to 120, and then everybody in the world is going to be eating pine cones.
Right, right.
Right. And so, and also, okay, so the eating until you're 60% full thing, that could work for guys, that can work for older people, like women who are post-reproductive age. But everybody's cure is not the same. I can't tell you how many clients I get who are like, but I listened to Dave Asprey's podcast, and he says that if I don't do bulletproof coffee, I'm going to die early. And I'm like, well, that certainly helps him sell a lot of bulletproof coffee, doesn't it? Wow, that was a really horrible thing for me to say on air. But I mean, but true. And I'm not saying that that's why he's doing it. He sells bulletproof coffee because he believes in it.
Right, right.
Obviously. He's a good guy. But that person's specific cure, this, you know, really overweight dude who hasn't moved in 10 years, like that's his cure, but that's not mine. Mm-hmm. You know, we all of our bodies go out of balance in some particular way. They're all hurt by our terrible Western things about food in some specific way. And we need to pay attention to the specific kind of healing we need. And as women, and if we're women who have come from restrictive backgrounds, our specific kind of healing is not eating until we're 60% full. It's eating until we're 100% full, and sometimes 150.
Yeah. That
or whatever.
Preach. Yeah, that is so spot on, and so again not talked about enough / at all. And you know, the point you were making there that I want to highlight is that not one diet, not one blog, not one book is for everyone. And the people who write them all have great intentions, but they're just sharing their experience and their truth. And that's great that it helped them. And that's great that they want to help people, but they can't necessarily, right? You can use different things and be inspired, sure, but I just love that. And I think, you know, to kind of bring this conversation of intuitive eating home and just really kind of sum it up, the piece that you've talked about before is just that, you know, whatever food choice you make, not using mental energy to beat yourself up for that. Just going with it and standing with that choice and knowing that you made the best choice for your body regardless.
Oh my, like how much mental energy do you think has been like wasted on the planet for us?
Oh,
like
I can't
women
even.
beating ourselves up.
God,
like
I know.
I can't even.
It's crazy.
God, because it's taxing, and it actually takes time. It actually takes mental time. Thinking takes time. We could be coming up with so many good ideas and doing so many. Oh my God, I can't. I don't like to say this, but I can't even.
Yeah, same. I know. It's so true. I mean, I think that I could have like cured cancer, like written 8,000 books and recorded 10 billion podcasts and done so many things with the mental bandwidth that I used to use for thinking about food and my weight and beating myself up and all of that crap. You know, it's silly. Mm-hmm. So I'm very, very happy that we're having this conversation and hopefully can pop people's tops off so they can start doing real good in the world and not using their minds to think about this stuff.
No, that isn't to say that you're not already doing real good in the world, right, ladies.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more.
So I want to talk, you know, before we shift out of food, I'd love to hear a little bit more about where you are with food and with eating currently, because I've heard you kind of allude to in previous interviews that you don't consider yourself a cook, and I am the same way. Like, I used to cook a lot out of necessity of being restrictive with my diet and wanting to eat a certain way and not being able to like buy the perfectly made meal that I wanted, so I'd have to make it myself. And so I would love to talk about the balance between feeding yourself healthfully and fast and with ease, and kind of how you handle that particular struggle. I'm in the process of finishing my book right now, and as you know, the time thing is is an issue. And also, I'm not a chef, and I don't have any desire to be. And so how do you handle not being a cook, but wanting fast, good, prepared meals, but also, not wanting to go through the drive-thru either? Like, how do you kind of feed yourself now?
I don't know if anybody is going to want to eat the way that I eat, but I'll go ahead and share anyway. It's not that I don't enjoy cooking per se, but I just, whatever. I prefer to spend my time doing other things.
Same.
And, so, I do all my own food. Like, I don't eat out pretty much ever. And I would have like the things that American culture makes from time to time, but soy and dairy give me acne, and foods with high potassium in them give me heart palpitations. So I've got like a really limited thing going on. So I do make all my own food. I buy a lot of produce. I can't tell you how much produce I eat. And it's fortunate that I live like a 10-minute walk from both a Trader Joe's and a Whole Foods. Nice. So, I never go to the Whole Foods, but I do spend a lot of time at the Trader Joe's. And I would say that I don't know, I probably eat like 30 or 40 pounds of produce a week, maybe. Anyway, I buy a ton of produce and I eat it. I don't know what else to tell you. I hope that we don't find out someday that microwaves like cause cancer, because I cook almost all my food in the microwave. It's so fast. Generally what I do is every other day I cook a pound of ground beef, and that'll last me for 2 days. Like, that's my protein for a day, 2 days, a day and a half maybe. And lean stuff normally, and that increases the protein content. So I do that, and then I have some veggies are pretty good and low in potassium, so I eat a lot of squash and a lot of asparagus and cauliflower and salad greens from time to time. And I make those when servings of those, like if I cut them up and put them in the microwave, it takes 3 minutes, and I don't have to clean any pots and pans. It's just a huge time saver. And as a matter of fact, because I care about the environment so much, I just eat out of one bowl all the time and clean it every once in a while. But it's my like own bowl, and whatever. So it's okay that it's like kind of dirty with my own food. But I really care about saving water and stuff. So I do that, and I have a ton of fruit, and that I eat whole. So that's kind of it. I really, really enjoy unwinding at the end of the day with an episode of, I watch a lot of TV shows, actually. I really like to unwind. What?
I love that about you.
Thank you. For a lot of my life, I thought I was better than a lot of things. I was better than pop music. I was better than TV. I was like, too important for stuff. And then I thought, who the hell do you think you are? And why not? Like, why not love the things that are easy to love? So anyway, I watch pretty bad TV. Not the worst, but
What are some of your favorite shows?
Oh my God. Let me make a list for you. Currently running, I want to tell you the shows that I think people will respect me the most for. I watched all 7 seasons of The West Wing. I watched The West Wing in like 3 weeks. And that's like, I don't know, 192 hours. Wow. I did that once. Yeah, I did that one time.
We got to add that to your bio.
You know what? I used to have Parks and Rec in my bio.
Oh, nice.
Because I have a lot of heroes in that show. I think Leslie and Ron are big heroes. What else do I watch? I watch a lot of I swear to God, I probably maintain like 10 or 11 shows. I watch Castle. I watch Bones. I watch Scorpion. I watch Elementary. Oh, that's a good one. I watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I watch Modern Family. I watch all the funny ones. I watch all those funny ones. The Mindy Project. Okay. Oh my God. I watched Jon Stewart, of course. Of course. I love South Park, of course. So many. I do. I watch a lot of TV. And anyway, all of which is to say, my like eating habits are not what you would necessarily expect. I eat a lot of fruit, and a lot of people say fructose is terrible for you, but I'm pretty healthy. And there are hunter-gatherer tribes that eat a lot of fruit and they're fine.
Yeah.
And it feels good. And why not? You only live once, right? And I eat super late at night. And that's because I dance from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And then I come home and I'm hungry. And I eat. And why not? And then I eat when I wake up. And then I often go back to sleep and I eat when I wake up again. But it works for me. And it's not super easy to find the pattern that works for you. But if you just try to balance the body thing with the mind thing, listen to your body and then let yourself know that that's really important data to listen to, but then exercise your executive control with your prefrontal cortex. And you can, I think, come to a reasonably intuitive and psychologically satisfying way of eating.
I love that. That's amazing. And something that I stress to the people I work with and just in general is, like I said before, the books and the diet books written, they were written for one person. And I think creating the Stefani diet and the Katie diet is great. It's creating custom curated diet for you and your lifestyle. And for Stefani, that's different than it is for me, and it's different than it is for you. But it's if you're truly creating it with integrity for your desires and following your pleasure and your senses and your body all together, like that board of directors, that's a really beautiful thing. And, hearing what Stefani does is great for inspiration, but it's not like everyone has to, eat that way or eat how I eat. It's just interesting to hear how people do it. And then and I think that the piece for people to take away from the way that you eat is, and they can take away whatever they want to take away, but I think the best part is that it's so personal to you and it works in your lifestyle, and you're not following any one particular person. You're just figuring out what works for you. And I do the same thing, and I love that. I think it's really helpful. Yeah. So I want to touch on your relationship with exercise and exercise for women in general, and how dance in particular has been so beneficial for you and your body image, and kind of how that whole transition with exercise occurred for you.
God, you really know the way to my heart, don't you? You're asking about TV. You're asking about dance. Next, you're going to ask me about my dissertation.
I did my homework. So.
No, next you're going to ask me about masturbating or something. So I'm sitting in a workout room right now, so that's ironic. I used to work out a lot. Lifting weights, sprinting, all this stuff. And it's good for you. It's great for you. I know it is. Again, but what is it that we're chasing here with anything? And is how much fitness is necessary for being healthy? And we tend to equate extreme fitness with extreme health, but that's not true. You need to be fit enough, but being a super athlete, for example, is not going to make you live until you're 120. I think what's going to make you live until you're 120 is being really happy and having a purpose.
Yes.
To be fair. I believe in being healthy for the sake of having a good life, and for the sake of enabling me to do awesome things for the planet and whatever, have fun while I'm doing it. So my relationship with exercise is that I used to just make myself do it. And I can't tell you, I could probably, it's such a small number, the number of times I did a super hard workout because I felt like it.
Right. Does anyone, honestly? I feel like that's just, if people say they are doing it because they feel like it, they're doing it because they feel like they want to feel after they do it, Yeah, and I got to be honest with you, I'll probably make a lot of people angry. It feels incredibly selfish to me. Yeah, I agree.
I just every human being has a limited amount of strength and limited amount of willpower. And I understand that exercising them makes them stronger and can make you more capable. But I am so over like willpower for the sake of me being fit so I can impress people, and or me being fit so I can feel fit. Like, that's fine. But I have willpower and I want to use it for things like saving the planet. I wrote a post and I keep meaning to submit it to a journal and I'm just not doing it. But like, I honestly don't want to be a perfect looking human being. Like, because I want to look like the best version of myself, and the best version of myself has other priorities.
Beautiful. Yeah. There's this great Huffington Post article I linked to the other day, and the title is "Your Body is Not Your Masterpiece, Your Life Is." And I think now, I don't really necessarily only love my body. I love my life as a whole, and my body's just a part of that. And I think, the more beautiful your life can become, the more beautiful you'll see your body. So I just wanted to interject that.
No, that's such a good way to put it, and that's such a shame because that's the perfect title, and I should have used that for my title and published it in the post.
It's such a good title.
We probably wrote the same article. So, yeah, that's exactly how I feel.
A lot of people, there's a lot of people on Earth who need that message.
Thank you. Right. So, I know I tend to think that once something's been said once, nobody has to say it again. So I whatever. It's been really terrible for my academic career.
No, and I think it's the opposite. I think, spirituality or health information or what have you, I think that, and I say this analogy all the time, like, it's kind of like Mexican food, right? Like, some people like tacos, some people like nachos, some people like burritos, but at the end of the day, they're all saying the same thing, or it's all beans and cheese and rice. It's like, but some people come to it through Stefani, some people will come to it through me, and it doesn't really matter as long as they get the nutrients from the stuff,
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and talk about dance.
Yeah, sorry, we've gotten off track, but I think it was okay.
So I dance, and a part of me feels a little bit terrible because it's very selfish, but it makes me a better person. And I honestly, going to not like a thumping like hip hop club. I mean, you could do that, but if you go to a place where people say salsa dance, for example, or West Coast swing or anything, you go in those rooms and there's 100 or 200 people in them, and they're all like laughing and smiling the whole time. It's just, they're very joyous places. And so anyway, I dance, and it's my spiritual world. It's a very spiritual thing for me. And it just, it puts me in my body in a way that I'm not in the rest of my life, because I'm a very head-y kind of person. But it's turning off the switch and letting myself be and doing what my body feels like, and something takes over that's not something. It's my body or my intuition or whatever, the music, my feelings, that stuff takes over. And all the horrible crap about the crap gets turned off. Now, if I go into dancing and I'm feeling self-conscious, it doesn't get turned off. If I go into dancing and I'm feeling worried about the way I look, it doesn't get turned off, and I don't get to have the wonderful spiritual experience that I'm looking for. But if I go into it feeling like good and confident, and yeah, it's unfair because technically I'm a pretty skilled dancer, but like, I really do believe that we can all just go feel good about ourselves and let go. And I get to move. And that's pretty much the only exercise I do these days. Like, I lift weights because I know how good that is for me, and it feels kind of good from time to time. So I do that, but I never force myself. I never force myself to move now. Like, if my body wants it, it'll ask me to move. I don't want to exercise willpower in that way anymore. And I choose to do something that I love so much that I can't wait to do it. Like, I didn't have an opportunity to go dancing today, and it's just like, it's killing me. Like, I feel like as human beings, when we move, we should do it because it's something that makes us come alive,
That's beautiful and then tweetable, and I want that. I want to learn to dance, or I want to have something that I actually look forward to doing in the way that you look forward to dance. It's really, really inspiring to hear you talk about it because you light up when you talk about it. And I wish for myself and everyone listening to find something that lights us up in that same way.
Yeah, I firmly believe it's out there. I'm going to tell you it's probably dance, but that's just me being there are so many good things that I know that people really, really love.
Well, you make me want to learn to dance. I'm a terrible dancer, but I want to do it now because it sounds so fun.
Come to Paleo FX. I'll take you out dancing. Last year, I said I promised myself I wasn't going to dance, and I ended up going out every single night. So
I've heard you say that in a bunch of podcasts, and I've also heard about this paleo thing, and I had never heard of it before. But every time I hear an interview of you, it like comes up, and so I'm intrigued.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, Paleo FX is it's all the paleo people get together, and we hang out and network, and it's wonderful for coming up with projects to do with people, but also like spreading the good word and having fun. It's really great.
That's super cool. I'm new to the paleo sphere. I'm not one particular diet of anything. I'm on the KD diet.
Yay!
But it's interesting, finding people from all different communities to be inspired by, and it's intriguing for sure. So the next thing I really just want to touch on before we wrap up with some quick fire questions is really shifting gears to spirituality a bit. And you're a scholar of philosophy, and I would just love to dialogue about some topics in that area, including the one that I've heard you speak about before, and maybe some new stuff you want to share too, but something that is just so intriguing to me that I would love to at least touch on is the religious background in fasting and vegetarianism, particularly for women, and kind of the history of that, and how we've kind of developed into this restrictive culture from our history. And could you you'll explain that better than I did, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally. So I've never studied this academically. I have no idea what other people say about it. I just sort of thought it up and guessed it was true. I do know from a little bit of work I've done in the medieval period that it was a very fasting became a big deal for women several hundred years ago. Way back then, and I don't discuss this in great deal in the book or anything, but one of my books, men were the religious actors in medieval Europe, and women didn't really get to do much of anything. And one thing men began to do was mimic the life of Christ, right? They really wanted to be with Jesus by mimicking his life, and one way of doing that was to be ascetic in certain ways, or they did it in all different sorts of ways. You could go out and be a monk or whatever. But one thing women could control was their food intake. So a lot of women ended up fasting to become spiritually pure, so they could be in relationship with Jesus and be a good person and all that sort of stuff. They really didn't have control over anything else. What else could they do? They didn't even have control of their time, but they could control how much food they put in their bodies. So that started 1100, it started almost 1,000 years ago, and it's sort of been with us ever since. And it changed forms, of course, but we began to very closely associate the purity of women fasting, with this thin body with goodness, and vegetarianism, right? Women would give up meat. And there's also always been historically this association of the feminine with the earthly, which unfortunately sometimes it was glorified, but usually it was demonized, right? Women were sexual beings and seductresses and earthy in this sort of whatever Mother Earth sort of way, and that's a bad thing. And ergo they need to do something to purify themselves, and food was a way to do that. So that sort of stuck with us. And then other things that I talk about are like the Puritans, right? We talk about how the Puritans came to America and ta-da, like happy religious freedom. But actually, like the Puritans' lives really sucked. like they banned festivals on holidays. They came here because they wanted to be like super aesthetic, super deprived, drab people, right? They didn't wear fun colors. They were, whatever. They didn't have fun. That's what they're called, Puritans. And that's like America's hero story, origin story, and it stuck with us. And the American culture really loves the go-getter and discipline and willpower. And, as much as we have these gluttonous things, and as much as Americans love to overindulge in stuff, people tend to really love the thing that is rare, right? And so the more and more these gluttonous type things or whatever, right? The more and more the treats come up, the more and more we're obsessed with this disciplined ideal that is the opposite of that, right? And so we have sort of all of these different things, and there's so many more coming together to create this culture in which women are trying to achieve purity by restricting themselves, and we're surrounded by goods that taunt us otherwise, and you're even better if you can say no and like keep being the skinny, pure vegetarian woman of a sorts, if that makes any sense.
Totally makes sense, and I loved that you shared that because it's really interesting. Is there anything else that you can share with kind of where you're at with your philosophy now, and just kind of some of your maybe spiritual perspectives that are important to you? I know it's like a huge, big conversation and big, huge question.
Oh my God, I don't want to bore your audience to tears.
No, we love this. I love this, Sue.
Okay, so the stuff that I work on comes from a very personal and important place for me. I grew up without religion. I grew up in an atheistic home, and I really wanted to make meaning. And I tried with science and like being a scientist. I worked in a lab for a while, and that was okay, but I didn't actually get to like address the meaning. All of which is to say that I was like, oh, the religious people are talking about meaning. I'm going to go talk to them. And I was like, oh my God, they have some points. And so now what I specialize in is technically called like religion and science. And I sort of talk about similarities, but also most importantly, what I'm working on is ways in which people can think about the world deeply, profoundly, spiritually, whatever, without being explicitly religious, in ways that we can have religious things like being saved, for example, without having a particular supernatural savior. So I have proposals in the works to do those things in doctorate programs, and I'm actually on my way. I'm going to Europe next week to interview at some different programs, so that's pretty exciting. But
so
anyway,
exciting. Yeah,
thank you. This is actually very important to me, like the existential situation of the human being, and this is what I spend most of my time thinking about. Is like the universe is big. Like, where does it come from? What does it all mean? What's the story, right? Like I obsess over those sorts of things and different ways that people address them. There's so many of them. And the more that you learn, it's almost like you don't pick a theory of the universe because there's so many, but you kind of learn all of them and realize that it's just the more you know, the more you don't know.
Yeah.
And so it's really wonderful. Something I do believe strongly and that I talk about in my work as a health something is the idea that like human beings are actually like inherently, I would say we're inherently religious beings because there is a world and we try to make sense of it, and we tend to make sense of things in groups. Mm-hmm. So religion is where people act in groups, but we really need to situate ourselves in the right context. This is like the thesis of my dissertation work. Like we need, as human beings, to think about ourselves, like tell the story of our lives within the wider story of things. I think that's really important. And that has so much to do with my perspective on the way that you live and the way that you eat. Because like I said earlier, like it's like you said, right? The thing about your life being your masterpiece. Mm-hmm. And I will never, sometimes I might be tempted to get really thin again because it would be easy. But the right thing to do is for the sake of all the young girls out there, right? It's for me to be comfortable in my body at its natural size. So it's I'm trying, like, that's me trying to tell my story in terms of like the arc of humankind or something like that. I think it's very important that we be spiritual, at least in that way.
Yeah, I could talk about this all day as well. I just posted something on Instagram a couple of days ago that said, I just want to sit on countertops and talk about the universe with you. And that's how I feel. I could talk about this stuff all day. And I think I agree that humans definitely gravitate towards religion. And again, my mentor, who I keep referring to, says that religion exists and spirituality exists as a way for people to cope with the fact that everything is out of our control, right? And we have all different coping mechanisms, right? We have drugs and overeating and sex, and people use all of those, and religion is a really good, healthy coping mechanism of this great mystery that everything is not in our control. Like, nothing is in our control. We have free will, but other than in the present moment, that's the only time that free will exists. Everything else is out of our control. So it's really interesting to have these conversations, and to in my work is helping people have a spiritual connection of their own understanding, whatever that means to them. And I think that's really powerful. So I love every aspect of your work, from the health stuff to the dance to the spirituality. It's just all so juicy and good, and I want to have you back and talk to you forever. But can we wrap up with some quick fire questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So just say the first thing or a couple things that come to your mind. So favorite color?
Orange.
Favorite day of the week?
Oh, Monday.
Favorite hour of the day?
4 to 7 a.m.
Favorite vegetable?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. Cauliflower.
Favorite fruit?
Mangoes.
What is kind of like your morning routine, and maybe the first few things you do when you wake up in the morning that impacts how the rest of your day goes?
This is a long answer. I am incapable, like physically, my body, I have a problem with my kidneys. I can't sleep more than 4 hours at a time. So I sleep, I wake up and eat, and then I go back to sleep. And so that's like my morning thing, is I wake up and I have a meal, and I either, if I have free time, I watch some TV, or I do a little bit of work, and then I go back to sleep for 3 hours.
Oh, cool. Interesting.
So, yeah. It's actually pretty terrible, but also kind of cool. So
yeah, you made it work for you, which is awesome. What are you most excited about in your life right now?
Wow. Okay. I'm moving to Spain in 2 weeks.
Yay!
So that's pretty cool.
I don't know. Spain. I studied abroad there.
Yeah, I'm going to be in Sevilla.
So cool.
That's kind of exciting. I don't know. There's a lot. I just love to dance. I don't know. And people in my family are happy. That's exciting too.
Yay.
There's a lot of stuff.
That's so amazing. I'm so happy for you. What's your favorite part of being an entrepreneur and being able to design your life?
I don't have a boss. Well, it's funny. I'm my boss, obviously, and my friends always tell me that my boss is such a bitch.
Yeah, I love that.
But it is hard because you have to stop yourself from working too much. Yeah. But I I get to dance until 3 a.m. every night, so I think that's pretty high on the list, Like,
Yeah, I
you
knew
set
you
your
were
own
gonna say
time.
that. Yeah, I
Of
love
course.
that. When do you hear your intuition the loudest, and how do you remember to follow that voice?
Huh. When do I hear my intuition the loudest? How do I remember to follow that voice? I really struggle with the concept of intuition. It's funny. Every single one of these questions, I wanted to talk for like 10 minutes.
I know. I want you to.
Forever. I love the color orange so much. Okay, intuition. That's such a good question. I want to say that I don't know how to answer that question because I don't see my intuition as separate from the rest of me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's cool.
So I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna have to pass. It's complicated. We could talk for a long time, but
next time we'll put that one on for next time. What's the biggest women's health misconception you're constantly clearing up for people?
Carbohydrates. Nobody, women think they should be on low carb diets, and that's not necessarily true.
What's one practical self-care action you take for yourself every day or most days?
That's another thing. Like, there's so much out there in the world teaching people how to take care of themselves and do self-love things, and it's a background thing for me these days. I don't have to actively try to make myself feel good about myself. It's just there. So I can say I don't. Maybe this is a negative thing. I used to wake up every morning and pinch the fat on my stomach right away, and I still probably do that a fair bit, but I will not let myself stand there in the mirror and look at myself and hate it. That's a no. I don't scrutinize anymore. I just put on clothes and go do stuff.
That's amazing. So powerful. Okay, next one is a little scenario. So it's the evening or whatever time, and you just get home from a long day and you're tired but hungry and you want to make something quick. What do you eat/make? What's your go-to staple thing?
Well, if I hadn't eaten protein in a long time, I'm going to need it and I'm going to suck it up and I'm going to make an animal. But my go-to food is apples. No question.
I love apples too.
I freeze them. Here's a tip. The texture of apples is so fun when they're frozen.
Ooh.
Freeze your apples. It's fun. Yeah.
That sounds really fun, but a little bit not so much when it's super cold. But
yeah, that's a little challenging. It is. It's great for the summer. It's a great way to keep cool.
Yeah, I love that. What's your favorite thing to have for breakfast? Apples. That's mine.
And I have vegetables and an apple or a different fruit and beef for just about every meal. That's what I do.
Nice. This is another food related question. What is the best thing you've eaten in the last month? Tastiest.
Well, this is tough because we just did the holidays.
Right.
Apples. Just kidding. Okay, so I had the crumbs of a upside down pineapple cake at Christmas, and I know that that's not a gourmet thing, and it's a crappy dessert thing. But it's been a very long time since I've had any amount of a crappy dessert thing, so that was pretty cool.
Yum. What's your favorite on-the-go snack if you are on the go?
I will take a small jar of coconut butter with me if I need fat, or a can of salmon, or an apple. Those are the things.
I love it. What is a superhero power you would like to have for a day?
Oh, crap. Do you know how many awesome superhero powers I could come up with? Okay, obviously we all want to fly, but I dance, so it's kind of like flying. But I want to fly, but it is. The only people I think who like also get to say that they do flying are like figure skaters or trapeze artists.
Yeah.
But that feels very selfish because if it's a superhero power, I could like really go big or go home. Like food could come out of my fingers and I could like go like, feed all the hungry people or something. I would go with the most altruistic, like I would need to sit down and do calculations for which superhero power would bring the greatest net utility to the planet in my day.
Wow. No one's thought out the answer to the question quite in that way. I love it.
Well, it's true.
So good. Okay, favorite book?
Mine. No. This is the worst question because it's the hardest one to answer. How can you have one favorite book? I love The Prophet.
Oh, I've never heard of it. I'm gonna have to check it out.
I'll send you a copy. It's like it's like a spiritual staple by a man named Khalil Gibran.
Wow, cool.
Okay. Yep.
I'm excited to check it out. Favorite movie?
My favorite movie is Contact, based off of Carl Sagan's novel. Oh. I know it's like kind of cheesy and terrible with Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey.
Ooh, I love him. I'm excited to check it out.
It's like I watch it once a year and cry because it's all about like the universe and meaning and of course they fall in love.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna go to the library and get it like tonight. It sounds amazing.
Yeah,
that's like right up my alley.
Yeah, Contact.
Favorite song?
Like currently or of all time?
You choose.
I'm listening to a lot of Sam Smith right now, who I just love. Of all time, I'll give a shout out to my mom. Simple Gifts is like kind of an old classic hymn song of sorts. And I play the flute and I used to play it on the flute a lot. And my mother loves it. And it's kind of like our song. So
aww, I love that. Super nice. You'll have to send this podcast to your mama.
Yep. She'll listen. She listens to him.
I love it. Okay, signature question, last question. As you know, and the name of my blog and this podcast is The Wellness Wonderland. So when I offer that term to you, Stephanie, to live in a wellness wonderland, what comes up? What does that mean to you?
What comes up? In terms of like what I imagine.
Yeah, just what does it mean to you?
It means to me being well enough to go do good things. Mm-hmm. I like I said earlier, like I want to be well enough to have my life be a masterpiece in a way that positively impacts people. And so a wellness wonderland is like I'm in good relationship with people and I love myself enough and it's all great and now I can like be a positive presence, be nice to the people around me, take care of the people around me, not be this terrible, irritable, cranky hermit I am so much of the time, and really be able to like positively exist in relationship with the people around me, as well as to cast that net as wide as I can for the people I can bring some light to or something.
That is so beautiful. I love that, and I completely agree. I think it's a huge shift when you shift from wanting to feel well and be well for vanity or for to fit into society's ideals, but to have serious vitality to be able to impact the world. And that's a powerful shift. So thank you so much for that and everything you shared. Like I've said a million times, I think you're awesome. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Katie.
Thanks for listening. You made it all the way to the end. I'll be back next week, but until then, let's stay inspired and keep this conversation going. So tweet at me at Katie Dalebout and our guest with your aha moments from this conversation. And like the Wellness Wonderland on Facebook. so we can all hang out there and discuss how inspired we are and how we'll apply it in our daily lives. And never miss another episode or post from me by signing up for email updates on thewellnesswonderland.com. See you back in Wonderland!